Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage where we have gotten wisdom of over 100 years in investing in real estate. Here today on Master Your Millions, we are super excited for our guest that is joining us today. In fact, he's in my office, so this is going to be a blast. But Jason, who do we have coming on?
Scott, this is really cool. This is someone that we have a type of person we've never had before. So Oscar immigrated to the United States from Venezuela when he was 15 and had the guts and the gumption to actually run an ice cream truck to help support himself through undergrad and then getting an MBA from the John M. Huntsman School of Business. While there, he was inspired by the school's motto, "Dare Mighty Things." And that is exactly what he's done. His career has been quite impressive. He's done, and in fact, he was named the Alum of the Year in 2022. He has all kinds of business-to-business investing and truly is one of the kind of people that we are hoping to help out there with this podcast, is helping people create millions, enjoy millions, and pass those millions to the future generations. So welcome, Oscar. I'm not going to pronounce your last name for fear of not doing it right. So tell us that first. Pronounce your last name.
Oh, my last name, Marquina.
Martina. Okay.
Marquina.
All right.
Close enough.
Well, that's okay. Tell us a little bit about your background. You come here at the age of 15. What got you into business? What got you thinking about investing? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, great question. All right, my origin story. Originally from Venezuela. Interesting fact, when I was in Venezuela, I was about 11, 12. And that's when I started my first small business. I will paint figurines and then sell it in the market. And that was a side hustle. Everybody has side hustles. And I was fortunate enough to do well, at least for a little 11, 12-year-old. Like I remember having like a couple $1,000 in my bank account. And this was like back in the early 90s. So that was a lot of money. But then when I was around 14, 15, my mom, we decided to immigrate to the U.S. in search of that better life, better opportunity. And I'm forever thankful to my parents for giving me the opportunity to come to a land like the U.S. where anything's possible.
Cool. And so you started an ice cream company, ran an ice cream truck.
Correct.
Tell us more.
I went to school at Utah State University, did engineering degree. And at the time, bills to pay, tuitions to pay. I couldn't get a regular job because of my immigration status. So the opportunity presented to start this small business, and basically bought a truck from a friend of mine that had run it previously. I remember only having enough money there to pay rent, tuition, or invest in this. Took the big risks to invest it.
Wow.
And yes, and it worked out wonderful. My first year, I operated myself. After a few years, started hiring other college kids to run it. I ended up with a couple of trucks, and that's how I put myself through school.
Wow. Did you sell it, or do you still own it today?
No, eventually I sold it.
Wow. So
Yeah.
The first exit, and this was before getting out of school or right as you were getting out of school?
I kept a couple of years after getting out of school. I sold it once I was ready to go into the corporate world. I got a real job. For the audience that cannot see me, like I'm doing air quotes, went into corporate, and for the record, like most of my career, I've been in corporate. I have a day job, but it's a side hustle. And real estate, venture capital have been my side hustle.
So how did you get started there? A lot of people sit and see and they're like, okay, well, I can see that so many people are capital raising and it seems like that they have a ton of experience and that's what allows them to do that. How did you come into that space? Because I believe you came in a little bit differently than most, correct?
Into real estate.
Capital raising, like for venture capitalists or investing money that way.
All right. Ooh. I started, the main reason I started was for the passion to help entrepreneurs. I'm a big believer that entrepreneurship is one of the biggest levers to support society and to help like the US continue to grow. So I saw as an opportunity to support founders and diverse founders. So that's what motivated me to get there. Obviously, being a business person, the returns were also very appetizing. And the way I didn't start by like racing. I started investing my own money, and I did it through various syndicates that they will talk to the startups, vet them out, and they will do the racing, and I will put my money along those. The more that I started doing that, like the more that I really enjoy working with funders. So at some point I decided, all right, I wanna start doing my own deal flow. I believe that I have like the capability to be able to select good companies. So I started sourcing my own deals, and once I found a deal, a founder that seemed very promising, I will take it to one of these syndicates and say like, hey, I want to raise money for this and take a lead that way.
So you kind of flipped the model on the head. So you started with the syndications, syndicates, and then once you had projects coming directly to you, then you turned around and went after the same money that you were investing in the first place?
Yes.
Mm,
And of
okay.
course, I bring friends,
Family.
like into it.
Right.
Yes. And the reason I went about it that way, I think like anything business, whatever your niche is, real estate, venture, like franchising, I think it's important to build competency.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start from zero, the best way to go about it, surround yourself with people that are experts, like build a team. I have heard you talk about that concept, like what is your team? So that's why I started with Syndicate. And once I felt competent enough, like I was ready to move into that next stage of doing my own deals.
Tell
One
us
of the
about.
things we one of the things we talk about here on our podcast, Oscar, is the importance of a team. You mentioned it a minute ago. Tell me a little bit about who was, say, your first member of this team, or the people that you surrounded yourself with, and how's that worked out for you?
Ooh, let's see. When it comes to venture, like one of the first members of that team is a gentleman by the name of David Olivencia, very experienced angel investor, successful executive in management consulting. He's a corporate board member, but he's one of the first persons that he met, and he's been a guy in several ways. Number one, like as great source of information as to how to think about investing in venture capital, but also incredibly well connected across multiple industries. So if he doesn't know the answer, he can introduce me to somebody. And
so how are you introduced to him?
I was introduced to him by friends. Well, a couple ways. I have seen his name in social media, LinkedIn, because he's very active. He's actually leads one of the syndicates that I work with. But also like a friend already knew him. So he made the introduction.
So in a sense, you sought him out.
Yes.
That's so cool. You were looking for a guide, looking for a mentor, and the mentor presented himself. Basically, that's really cool. Sorry to interrupt you, Scott. Go ahead.
Yes.
No, that's fine. I think that's wonderful. A
Yeah.
lot of times that's what I see is when the student is ready and has a very specific path that they want, all of a sudden that mentor appears.
Yes, yes. And I like what you say. I saw him out because I think you have to seek those relationships. Yeah, I think it's very rare when they just happen and fall in your lap. You gotta seek them out and be prepared when they present themselves.
I very much agree with that. So when you first approached him, did you just start bringing value to him? Did you ask him to be a mentor right away? Or has it been more of when you have questions, you just go to him like, hey, I have a question about this, or here's a deal I think you'd be interested in. What is your relationship like with him?
It started very simply. I told him that I was interested in the space, and he's the type of individual that likes to give and likes to educate. I mean, and in practical, the value that I brought initially was a couple of things, like number one, money to invest. But also, I also had a deep network of executives, professionals in various industries. So I think he saw the value of that. But he's the type of person that really likes to give back. As for mentorship, like I don't think that we have like an official mentorship relationship. I'm not a big believer on official relationships. I like to go more with the flow. So it's more informal in that sense.
Okay, because one of the things that I've noticed, a lot of people want to go out and find a mentor, and they want it to be almost like a class setting where the mentor sits them down and says, okay, so this week we're going to do A, B, and C, now go do it. But every mentorship I've had, it's more of they don't even know they're a mentor. They're just there to answer questions. So if I bring them a question or bring them value, I get to learn.
Yes.
Is that how you would describe yours?
Yes, exactly.
See, that's a lot of people need to realize that when we're so used to being educated in school and stuff, where that's how learning process is, that when you step out of that, that's just what you expect. Although most people need to change their view, especially a lot of our listeners that I personally talk to, is they all ask, yeah, will you mentor me? And then they want that exact framework. It's like, no, I'll do it the same way that I was taught. So I think that is a key point that we need to touch on. Now, I know was it through your mentor that I know earlier when we were talking before the show, you were telling us about one of your best investments that you made. Was that through your mentor? Did you find it yourself? Tell us a little bit about that.
I didn't find that deal through my mentor. I found it through a different syndicate. But I gained experience to be able to recognize that great deal through that mentor.
Awesome. And then what is that going to do?
I'm expecting somewhere between 80 to 100x an initial investment.
And how long has that been? Has it been like a 5-year process, a 10-year process, a year?
I invested on that company about a year and a half ago. So
pretty good.
Yes.
Remind me the name of the company.
It is called Market Force.
Market Force.
It is an African startup, an operating system for vendors. All right, I'll give you the spiel. Basically, they help connect informal vendors and small businesses with big-time suppliers, the Coca-Cola, the Procter & Gamble's of the world. If you think about Africa, very informal economy, about 80% are really small of the economy, small vendors. So there isn't a structure, and that is the problem that Market Force is looking to solve. When I invested in them, they were doing 50 million in annual revenue. They closed 2022 doing 1 billion.
Wow.
And are projected to reach 20 billion in the next 5 years.
So it's essentially Alibaba just for Africa, or AliExpress. Are you familiar with them?
I say it's more AliExpress.
AliExpress. Okay.
Yes.
Just slightly. I can see a couple of differences, but that's a fairly decent comparison, I would imagine.
Yes,
Wow.
because in addition to transacting on the product goods, they're also implementing fintech solutions like facilitating payment and working cash. And the third piece is they're aggregating the data and selling it back to like the big corporations to create some visibility. Yeah. But along the big winners, there are also a lot of failures. Like that's the nature of venture capital. Like the vast majority of my investments are gonna fail. And actually have one fail this week. So
I'm sure it doesn't feel good either.
as an investor, I was expecting it. Meaning like I know some of my investments gonna feel like the part that doesn't feel good, like this is somebody's life. They have employees, they put their sweat into it. So it's unfortunate and you get a feel for the entrepreneur.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And that's another point to bring up is a lot of people when they're investing, they want to play it safe. They don't want to lose. Although that's where all the experience is made, I imagine. It's those failures that allowed you to see this company in Africa and be able to be like, oh, that is an opportunity.
Oh yes. I feel like I have way more failures in my life than I have successes.
Well, I played baseball, and if you got on base 3 times out of 10, you were wildly successful. And so that's how I've always looked at it. And I know Jason and I have talked about that several times. Okay, so you're doing that. I know that you're starting to do well, let me back up real quick. For a lot of our listeners, they are beginners. They're looking to get into the space, and some of them are veterans. But out of all of your experience with venture capital and raising money there, give me your 2 best tips of advice.
My 2 best tips in venture capital, I will say 2 things. Number 1, know your area's competency. Venture capital, like any business, is not easy. You gotta really build conviction in your investments, and in order to do that, like you gotta be able to have expertise, deep knowledge about the business, or have access, have a network, and that can help you advise on the business. And that's my second piece of advice. Your network is your net worth. Not in terms of like dollars, but in terms of knowledge. The more people, the smarter the people that you have surrounding, and you can always tap that into in order to find and evaluate like the best deals.
I love that. I really love that, especially since I've heard that described that way before. Your network is your net worth. And so that's you are constantly networking. So that makes sense on why you're doing that all the time too.
Yes. And I do I don't do it just for business. I do it because I truly enjoy smart, driven, successful people. And I feel like the worst comes to worst. I had a great conversation, maybe get a new friend.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Tell us a little bit, or you were going to ask a question, Jason?
Yeah, it dawned on me that in a real world sense, you're kind of like a shark on Shark Tank. People are pitching you ideas and you're deciding whether to invest in their business, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. That's so
what
cool. We have a shark.
I got a
we have
shark
our
in
first
my
shark.
office.
Our first shark on our program, and that's awesome. And hope you go bigger and bigger. Tell me, what is the process most of the time? I mean, obviously you don't have this big conference room where you're on a big leather chair like on TV. How is it that people normally pitch to you an opportunity?
Excellent question. Because I don't wanna give the audience the impression that like people rush to you. For the big guys like the Shark Tanks of the world, like they'll get a ton of incoming deal flow. When you're a small angel investor like I am, it's really upon the angel investor to reach out and identify these companies. So it's a little bit of a marketplace. I do a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of conference, basically putting my name out there, getting to to meet as many entrepreneurs as I can. Because one, I have to get their interest, show them that I will be a good valuable partner, but and then they gotta get my interest. So it's a little bit more like marriage. That one or the other one pursuing. But when you get hundreds of millions of dollars that you're investing, like the Shark Tanks, people just rush to you.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, you need to bring us a deal. Sounds like the next couple you're looking at, you need to bring us a deal instead of me bringing you stuff.
I'll bring you a deal.
All right. I like that. I like that.
Cool. One of the things we also like to talk to people about is the infinite banking concept. What is your, on a scale, say from 1 to 5, your understanding of that concept?
I'm gonna go with 1. I heard the name before. To be honest, I don't know the details, and that's something I need to get better at, like taking advantage of these great concepts.
How did you hear about it?
I heard it through you guys.
Heard it from us. Okay.
Yeah, like I've been listening to your podcast. I have heard on a couple other networks, but like the first time that caught my attention was on one of your podcasts.
So you had heard it other places. That's good. Yeah, that's something that we are heavily involved in, both personally and professionally. And what I mean by that is we practice it, is also we help people set that up and get that going, having the ability to have uninterrupted compound interest on their money while that money is also working someplace else, such as in a business, or some other investment like some real estate or something. So that's really cool. We'll have to connect afterwards and talk a little bit more about that. Let's pivot a little bit. And I want to know what I'm so impressed that at age 10, you have a business in Venezuela, you immigrate to the United States, which is a blessing. And yet that entrepreneurial spirit was there and you came to the United States. That's kind of like a United States American dream type thing, is to own your own business. So awesome. What are your dreams now going forward? Tell us what your dreams are the next 5 years, for example.
Great. My dream is to continue doing what I'm doing. Meaning I have a day job. I hope to leave that day job here pretty soon and dedicate myself full time to.
So give us a date. Give us a date on that. You said it's soon. What's your goal? We want to hear you right here on the show. Tell us that this is my goal. I want to leave my job, have this other going so well by July 4th.
I don't have a date in mind. May 1st.
Okay. We love it.
Yes.
We'll bring you back on then and let's see. We'll hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah. May 1st. We love that. Love that. So keep going with your dream. Sorry to interrupt, but I feel like that would be, for real entrepreneurs are out there. They are dreaming that way, and they make their dreams vivid by using dates, by using, details and stuff. So keep going.
Yeah. No, and I love that you asked me for the date, because the more people I tell about it and I give them that date, the easier that it is to make that leap. Because I imagine that your audience will relate to this. It's hard to take that leap. If you have a steady job, like having a paycheck is addicting. And once that you reach certain level, like God and half costs are real. So it's hard to be able to take that leap of faith, but setting up that date does help. I'm talking to great people like you.
That's awesome.
That dream is, my goal in business, I'm not necessarily doing it for the money. Is a couple things. Number one, learning and working with in cool technologies with cool people, but also freedom. Be able to work in what I want with who I want, be able to dedicate time to the family.
Of course. And I know one of your goals is to get more into real estate. In fact, you've got a project out in Kansas you're looking at here soon. In 5 years, do you have a certain number of doors you're trying to achieve? What does life look like?
Oh, yes, because we haven't talked about that. Actually, before I was doing BC, I started in doing real estate, and that's where I built like my initial wealth. And yes, the goal in real estate, I want to keep building that portfolio. Ideally, in 5 years, if I have to put a number, it will be 100 doors.
Love it.
Yes, and my immediate goal, and you and I've been talking about this, I want to get like my first development project, ground up development under my belt.
Yes. And one of the things I really appreciate about you is you actually go out and do it. You've brought 2 projects to me now that we've gone through and evaluated, and they didn't really turn out what we thought, right?
Yes.
But you're doing it and you're getting experience as you're going. So as you, just like your angel investing, those failures, now all of a sudden you can start to identify, this one's looking better. Oh, this one's really good. Things like that.
Yes. And you, I mean, I gotta thank you because you've been an amazing resource at and guiding me through those projects.
Of course. So man, the time just flies. Every time I talk to you, it's been like a half an hour already.
Really?
So we don't want to keep you all day, but for any final words for our listeners, pieces of advice, things that you just suggest to people to get them out of bed?
Yes. It's funny, like before the interview, I was like jotting down like some ideas. If I have to leave people with one, is understand your why. Why is it that you want to build wealth or go into business or into real estate? Whether that be because for me it's freedom. For other people, they might just want to build wealth. But once that you understand your why, you can start making better decisions as to where you choose to invest and what you choose to do. Because for some people, real estate might be the right answer. So for some people, venture capital, that why will define that.
I love it. Jason, any final words?
Simply that Oscar is living, breathing proof that the American dream is alive and well. It's been an honor to interview you on this podcast, Oscar. I'm in awe of what you've done, in awe of what you're doing and your dreams and where you're going. I hope everybody that's listened to this podcast will recognize that. And man, good job. Wow.
Yes, no kidding. No kidding.
And thank you for having me. I love the podcast. Incredibly impressed by the amount of knowledge, and I'm very impressed by you too.
Oh, well, thank you. And we're going to bring you back on May 1st.
May 1st.
You've heard it here first.
We're going to have a way to contact you in the show notes. So make sure you give us that information for the fact there are people out there that may have a business that are looking for an angel investor, and you're the man. They need to come to you.
Excellent. I'll give you my information, or you want me to give it to you now?
Yeah, drop it on it now, and we will also put it in the show notes down below.
All right. You can reach me the best way, LinkedIn, Oscar Marquina. My email is omarquina@gmail.com, OMARQUINA, and my phone number is 435-760-0886.
Yes, and if you reach out to connect with Oscar, make sure just send him a text or something. Say, hey, heard about you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us today, guys. As always, remember, if you'd like to connect with us, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot us an email. All the links are in the show notes down below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you like the show, give us a 5-star review. It really helps us out. In the end, remember that mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.